and to Australia. This time, Australia, for the first time in his career, did not make top 2. And that's because of these two. As we're going to kick things off on a fun map, I think. There's a chance to see some wild stuff here on Blackburn. In the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the American Protoss Titan. Still representing Ting after all these years. It is Neeb.
Down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, the Protoss sniper apparently as of late, the blue Zerg player, the Queen of Blades, she is Scarlett.
Now, if Scarlett can take her natural, I was wondering, are we gonna start things off in a very spicy manner? Is Scarlett gonna take the gold? But unfortunately, that's not gonna happen. She's just gonna take the base at 9 o'clock. Blackburn, I think, is a pretty good map to get a couple carriers out and get some Void Rays out. But Trigger also mentioned multiple times that he thinks Scarlett is incredibly good against Skytoss. Well, I think Neeb is incredibly good at sitting back and building Skytoss and getting a bunch of batteries and a mothership and some high Templars. You know, Neeb is one of the very few players out there that made me think of the mothership. It's like, you know what? I see why it's pretty good in this matchup. Because he just makes it almost impossible for these Vipers to get in range. He just feedbacks them over and over again when the high Templars are closed. I don't think Scarlett wants to let the games go on for that long, even if she's comfortable in the late game.
Yeah, I mean, my mind darts back to the 1 hour and 10-minute game that I watched of these two players where Neeb was constantly getting up that mothership, and I was sitting there with Todd, and every single time he'd lose the mothership, he would always take his tax on Scarlett's army with either the feedbacks, getting a lot of snipes off with his Tempest on the other Vipers or Corruptors and everything. Every single time Scarlett was able to get that mothership, it oftentimes came at a pretty decent cost. So I think Neeb is... I agree. He's quite good with that kind of late game army, but he's also just good at getting there.
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. A lot of people are good with carriers, just not a lot of people can get into carriers without the Zerg being 3 bases ahead and the entire map covered in creep. And that's when Neeb will make the difference. We're going to kick things off with a Stargate here on Blackburn. Then, of course, the big question is how we're going to follow it up. Because just because you play Stargate doesn't mean there's only one way. We saw Showtime, for instance, go triple Oracle 5 games in a row against Lambo. It doesn't happen often that you see someone go for the exact same opening 5 games in a row. I'm expecting Neeb to start off with a Void Ray and just take it from there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you mentioned about Neeb just sort of being the rock is that he can just be the player who says, I have a really solid way of playing and I'm so good at it. And it's so standard and covers most of my bases that, yeah, I can actually just do this thing multiple games in a row. I don't have to be super sneaky. It's not, I would say it's kind of like if you compare the situation of how Cyril was taken out by Lambo. Lambo had to approach every one of those games really using his head and really using a brain power to be like, okay, how do I make this work? How do I play out this game? How do I play out this map? Neeb has a little bit more luxury saying, well, I'm gonna do my Neeb thing. That is just the way that I win games usually.
It's quite a few Zerglings already being produced by Scarlett, as these Adepts are gonna be in the slow zone, but obviously if they are in the slow zone, then the Zerglings are in the slow zone as well. But Scarlett still gets the first, and it's actually gonna get the second Adept too. Once more, Scarlett, her initial set of Zerglings, just finding a lot of success. And this has been a real trend in her lower bracket games of the entire playoffs.
Yeah, seems like she's just identified a really, really nice opening for, I guess, how to punish a lot of these Protoss players with those Adept openings and how aggressive they get. Now, Oracle's going to be moving around. It is going to find a small angle where the Queens are not quite actively covering, so 4 workers will end up falling in the end. And Neeb is just going to be following this up behind all this with a Void Ray after getting out the second Oracle.
Yep, double Oracle obviously has a lot of potential as the Adepts from Neeb will take a good fight this time. Scarlett drops a Roach Warren. Now, we've already seen her go for a Queen March 1 time today. And a lot of extra Zerglings on the way too. And Scarlett is also still not packing up. A little bit confused about these 16 links. What do you think they're intended for?
I mean, I think right now, actually, if she is able to use them, not just for, you know, pushing back the Adepts, they could actually also continue to pressure on over toward the third base if they manage to get the cleanup on the Adepts. But for now, just pushing those back is going to be important because, well, the Queens can't handle them all on their own, especially with the Oracle still flying around.
We do have that safety Void Ray. If Neeb didn't have that Void Ray, I'd be like, oh, I actually don't like this for Neeb because now the Oracles are almost out of energy. A lot of adepts have gone down, but the Void Ray should always be able to keep this Nexus safe. Void Ray is maybe not amazing against Lynx, but against these numbers, the Void Ray will do fine.
Yeah, almost manages to save that adept. Neeb does with that force field, but barely ends up losing in exchange for pretty much almost all of the Zerglings right there. And Neeb is still being very active with these oracles. He's at that stage in the game now where he knows, okay, queen count and just the overall coverage of the bases is going to be pretty difficult to break into. Probably not going to find a lot of drones, but just keep an eye out on what Scarlett is doing and seeing things like, oh, you're opting for the gold base instead of the top left-hand base. That's going to be very important when he does start thinking about a move out.
It's definitely been interesting. Scarlett went up to 4 bases before firing up that lair. And even though a lot of Zerglings have been produced, even more drones have been produced. But Neeb wouldn't be Neeb if he doesn't find the occasional opening with his oracles. First Oracle solo on HP. I thought it was going to go down, but I think there was small misfire there. And Scarlett actually fired on the at the Oracle with more HP. Neeb dodging a bullet there.
Yeah, definitely being able to keep those oracles alive helps out quite a bit later on, and even in the earlier stages. But we're at the point now where Neeb is able to add on his Templar Archives, get up charge, and after he has those Archons added in, I mean, kind of similar to the army composition we were seeing Estrella trying to get up to, but with a little bit better of a start to the early game. Neeb is going to have a very scary looking army that he can actually start pushing across the map with, and he's actually pushing across the map a little bit earlier than I thought he would, Kev.
Yep, but can actually get himself in a nice position on the other side of those minerals of the gold base, right? And that's where, like, having the gold base is awesome. Defending it is often a whole different story. You don't really want to go that far off creep. Scarlett is dropping her infestation pit, but it's going to take a little while. Force fields are pretty good. Could have been worse, but that's still 5 drones going down and the Spore Crawler that's going to fall.
Yeah, and I think the Immortals, if they really want to, can get in range of the hatchery, but I think that Neeb is expecting there should be some units making the loop around to try and ambush the army, so he's going to end up backing off and just take a bit of the free damage that he found.
To drop a revelation there, and that's exactly what he does. Storm is on the way, and a War Prism is being produced too by Neeb, so I have the feeling that maybe the next push will be even more fierce, as Scarlett is just gonna go up to losing a few more Zerglings. I feel like Scarlett's losing a lot of units, but maybe these Ravagers can get the fight that they are looking for. They first need to take care of these force fields. Can Neeb save these units? Does he want to recall? The answer is no. Scarlett trying to kill the Oracles with Corrosive Bile. That's not gonna work. These trades are just not quite working out for Scarlett. I feel like Scarlett is losing a lot of expensive units so far, and Neeb is just doing what Neeb does, and that's getting a lot of value out of Frodo's units.
Yeah, man, those force fields really saved the day. I feel like there's a lot of other pros players where you hand them control of that situation, and they end up losing quite a bit more. That army pounces in and at least snags up on the sentries or something, but Neeb just had the reinforcements, had the force fields to buy enough time, and was able to make a lot happen with that. Now we have Neeb, who's got a even supply army, but a lot of his army supply is far more cost effective than Scarlett's right now. He's got a lot of the Immortals. He's got 7 High Templars he just warped in, ready to turn into Archons. He's even got this War Prism warping a couple of Zealots in the main base that Scarlett is just getting into position to defend right now.
Yep, which obviously means a lot of Scarlet Rebello units are going to be out of position, and that frees up the map for Neeb to comfortably make his way to the other side of the map. Neeb is going to drop a fleet beacon behind all of this, so by no means is this an all-in, or does Neeb really feel like he needs to win the game here. But he can probably get a good fight as he drops a Scythe Storm and these Ravages, and a couple of them do pop immediately. I actually really like Neeb's chances of winning this game, but he kind of needs the Prism here or just a couple of Zealots to deal with these Zerglings, because the Zerglings are kind of the biggest issue.
Yeah, I mean, there are storms galore, and I love that he's just fighting back slowly but surely by using the storms, but finally the Zealots come on forward. Something he absolutely needed. Wow. We also got Zealots on the top left-hand side. That's why his army just didn't have any Zealots before that. They were all just right-clicking down that top left-hand base. And Neeb, he's making the push happen at the same time that he's sniping the base. And even though the War Prism does get sniped off, that hurts. So many Zealots in the main base now.
Yep, and it's going to be very hard to deal with Zealots in the main, Zealots in the top left side, and Storms in the center. What a sexy game by Neeb, if I may say so. It just feels like he makes everything look so easy, so effortless. Well done. Neeb takes the 2-0 lead. after, of course, getting a 1-0 head start of coming out of the upper bracket. Ravi, watching Neeb play is almost like Protoss art. I think he lost 0 probes that game, by the way. Literally 0. And every other game, you see Scarlett finding so much success with her initial Zerglings. It's always a probe here, a probe there. Neeb lost 0 workers.
I think you might be right looking at the workers active graph. Kev, honestly, it's just when you watch Neeb, it just makes you think, wow, how do Zerg players win? When your Protoss player is that clean and it doesn't feel like there's any openings to exploit. Neeb is just on top of everything, and he's got the right answer in the mid game. He's constantly hitting all the different sides. Scarlett gets so spread out in an already tough situation. Neeb, it's almost just frustrating watching him play because you're like, how do you do it? How do you do all of that?
That fight where the High Templars felt a little bit exposed, and there was one Archon, but Archon was kind of far in the front, so it felt like it couldn't really help out in killing those links. Ravi, I would have panicked the hell out of my mind, and I would have started storming my own army. It's like just anything to kill these Zerglings. Neeb made that look easy. Somehow he killed all the links, and then he landed a final big storm in the center of all these Hydras, and you could just hear that satisfying Zerg sound when multiple units die at once to storm. I'm like, my goodness, Neeb. And then a little bit later, you see, the fleet beacon is going up at home. Like, he's going up to 4 bases. He's dropping a fleet beacon. Yet there are zealots in the top left side. There are zealots in the main base. Parking the prism above the sport crawler was maybe the only thing we could fault him for. But who cares? Because that game was pretty much over at that point.
That wasn't even his final form, Kev. He was ready for Scarlett to deflect all of it and just move in to the next stage of the game. That's how scary it was. Well, Scarlett, like you said, is going to be down 0-2 now because of that 1-0 lead the winner's bracket player does start with. So Neeb's going to get that comfort of going into map number 3, Lightshade, where he is very, very close to already having a pretty dominating start in this best of 5.
I'm still so impressed. I'm just thinking over, like, also that move out with the sentries and the immortals, and then you feel like, oh, did he maybe overstay his welcome? He's getting chased by lings and ravages, and he's like, shut up, ruddy nerd. I know what I'm doing. Drops a couple force fields, kills a few lings, uses the oracles to kill the ravages. Like, how often don't we see when a Protoss player stresses out that they do end up losing the oracles because they're kind of just chasing and you know where they're gonna go? Avoids the corrosive ball, saves all the units. I'm like, does he have to recall? He's like, no, once again, shut up. I know what I'm doing. Like, what a game. Honestly, super impressive game coming out of our Protoss. Let's see if our awesome Zerg player has an answer for all that Protoss greatness that's spawning on the other side of the map. Our Canadian Zerg down 0-2, but he's had an amazing run through the lower bracket, and we know that he's capable of bringing it back. Representing the shop of our rebellion, it is Scarlett.
And down here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, the red Protoss player representing Ting and up 2-0. He is the Thundershaft. He is Neeb.
You know, I love that nickname, but I thought he specifically told you to not use it anymore. And you just keep using it because I do think it's amazing. Oh.
You know, as long as he still is speaking to me, I know he's at least a little okay with it.
I don't know. I don't dare it. I love Neeb. I think I get along with him pretty well, but I don't want to cross those boundaries. And let's see what game 2 or game 3 has in store for us. I do want to say, though, that, you know, people might tune in and be like, oh, the grand finals of DreamHack Masters and a Scarlett Neeb. You know, not very surprising. Maybe could have been Estrella. But this was a really fun season of NA StarCraft, if you ask me. I thought the group stage was really cool, seeing this come out, like 6-1 in this group stage. Pili as well, having a really good showing in the group stage, if you ask me. Like, Group B was just a wild, wild west where you had no idea who was going to advance, but you know, Vindicta making it into the playoffs for the first time in his career. Trigger having his big coming out party, making it into the playoffs. I thought it was a really entertaining season.
Absolutely. Honestly, Kev, if you had shown me the results from the group stages maybe like 4 months ago or even 5 months ago, I would have told you, like, you're full of it. Look, I know that Disc has been one of those players that, like, could maybe amount to something someday, but, like, getting second in the group. All right, Pili, I mean, he's basically retired at this point. Nina, yeah, you know, just inconsistent, but I could see that. Future not making it out of the groups, like M. Canning not doing as well. Trigger, who is this guy? Like, there's so many great surprises that happened this season in North America.
And if you ask me, Roddy, after all these weeks of DreamHack StarCraft 2, what was your favorite series to cast? Well, we've had a couple of great ones, but that Nina versus this series that I casted on Friday with Waddy, oh man, that was so fun. It was just the absolute definition of fun in StarCraft 2. Every game was wild. You had no idea who was going to win it. 7 twists and turns. NA StarCraft definitely delivered. I'm proud of you, NA region.
Yeah, Kev, can I also just say one thing that we haven't really brought up as much? I mean, you were talking about Scarlett's winning streak and stuff in ZVP, and oh, nice that she's able to get a couple of these lings in over here while the Adept is across the map. We'll see if Neeb can avoid taking any major damage here. But I just want to say, Neeb has only dropped 1 map this event. And you know who it was to? It was to a man that he has only lost to when he played Terran. And that's Jon Snow. He's Jon Snow, the man who literally can never beat Neeb. He's the only player to have taken a map off of him so far. But ooh, Scarlett, I mean, getting a good start in this game. 3 probe kills with 2 Zerglings.
Yep, Neeb is actually kind of derping a little bit. So worried about what's happening in the front that he wasn't really taking care of those 2 happy Zerglings. And 2 Lings may not deal damage very quickly. Yeah, not a bad start at all. I gotta say, the Scarlett made a lot of additional Zerglings. Killing 4 probes is awesome, but then still being 5 workers behind is a bit less awesome. This is kind of a weird game. Obviously, a little bit of perhaps mind games, and these 2 players knowing each other very well. Scarlett getting a good scout off. Scarlett is making roaches of 29 drones. You want to have roaches to deal with Resonating Glaive Adepts, but do you want to have roaches of 29 drones for your dragon?
I'm not so sure about that, but at the same time, Neeb is, this isn't like the 3-gate, this is the 4-gate version of the Resonating Glaive Adept attack. And Scarlett is moving around with those Zerglings. I think she was hoping that Neeb would send all of his Adepts like a lot of Pros players do across the map, but Neeb, I think, knows Scarlett too well, left 1 Adept at home. Scarlett is returning back, and here's the thing,
all-inning, no? Like, this is not just defense. This is all-inning by Scarlett.
Yeah, and if you just hard shut this down, kill all of these Adepts, and move across the map to end the game, like, that can work.
Yeah, but why would Neeb commit with the Adepts if he sees this amount of units? Like, I feel like that would almost be a rookie mistake. And Neeb is anything but a rookie. And now Scarlett is still making additional Zerglings, but yeah, Neeb, I think, is just going to stay at distance. There's no, just when I say that he does take the risk of being surrounded, corrosive ball in the center, a lot of units going down. But the longer this goes on, the better it is for Neeb, because he is enjoying this economic advantage. The Adepts make it into the main base, and I'm really worried for Scarlett. I'm sure Scarlett will clean up these Adepts via Dragon, but she is dealing an insane amount of economic damage to herself, and Neeb should know that all he needs to do is focus on the defenses, and he's gonna be fine.
Yeah, even finding a few more drones, 9 workers killed, and it is at the sacrifice of basically every single one of these Adepts. But like you said, Kev, this is actually just buying time. This is just giving Neeb more time to get up defenses back at home. But what are those defenses? Honestly, Kev, I've been looking back at Neeb's base, and while there is a robo finish, I don't see a massive flood of units that have been warped in at home. I don't see sentries. I don't see shield batteries or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's almost like Neeb is like, yeah, this went pretty well. He's even moving out a bit with the Adepts. Neeb, like, you're kind of getting all in. Scarlett has no drones. The War Prism is giving some vision, but it still seems like Neeb is not putting it together. He's still building probes. He's taking extra gases. Now a couple of batteries go up as Neeb is like, oh, your Ravages have made it to my side of the map? Yes. Neeb is being all in, and he's just still not aware of it. There is a Dark Shrine on the way, and if it finishes up, the Dark Shrine could still win the game, but this is a lot of Zerg knocking on the front door of Neeb.
Yeah, Neeb has to survive for quite a bit of time. Dark Shrines take a long time to finish, but all of Neeb's units are starting to fall, and there it is. Scarlett is going to take the 2nd map of the tournament off of Neeb.
This is where Neeb, you know, how every pro gamer, when a game ends, they do this little rewind thing, and they take a look at the worker count, or the game ends, and you click on the worker graph, and you're like, 19? You had 19 drones? Yes. Neeb was at 45 workers going into 47 against Scarlett, who only had 19 drones. But hey, it's good news for our grand finals. Means Scarlett gets a point on the board. We're gonna head into a quick break, and after that, we'll be back with Neeb Scarlett Game 4.
We're back and ready to move into the series, moving into game number 4. Currently with a series score of actually 2-1 over here, Kev, where it's actually not going to be the 3-0 that it looked like that game was about to turn into, thanks to Neeb finding giving Scarlett a bit of an opportunity.
A rare misread. Neeb is someone who normally has excellent game sense. Of course, in the past, I know a long time ago, it was like, oh, Neeb always dies to all lanes, but like that's so long ago, that's not even that relevant. Normally, I feel like Neeb knows exactly where he's at, and Neeb should have known where he's at. That's why you could kind of see him scratching his head as well after the game. He's like, how did I not see that coming? Because Neeb had adepts in the main base, Neeb had adepts in the third, Neeb had adepts in the natural and shaded not once but twice over all the roaches, all the ravages, and then he even still had a prism flying around. And even when the initial set of adepts got cleaned up, that prism showed up in the natural, and he's like, nothing to kill here. I guess I'm really good. And but still no batteries, no immortal, no nothing. And not until the Cybercore was getting attacked by Karosabal, and he was like, whoa, am I being all in? It's like, yes, it's a lot of Zerg units heading your way. That's doesn't happen very often, but hey, it's good news for us because we hope for a close and awesome final. So it's good to see Scarlett get a point on the board.
Absolutely. And we're going to get ready to move into game number 4 now and see if Scarlett can tie this series up, even though they've both won one game so far. And Neeb did start up one of the one game in this best of 7 series, coming in from that winner's bracket. So we move down here to the bottom left-hand side of the map on top of Shopify Rebellion's very own Scarlett Zerg.
And in the top left side, we're looking at the main base of a man who was incredibly close to taking a 3-0 lead. Instead, he's still up 2-1, so that's not all that bad. Representing Ting, it is Neeb.
Now, Kev, I absolutely know. In fact, I'm going to even look right now inside some of the NA discords and be like, all right, where is Jon Snow rooting hard for Neeb so that he can say he was the only player besides Scarlett to take a map off of Neeb? Because well, Neeb has had such a stellar performance in this tournament, and it includes actually versus Scarlett, as we were talking about in that group stages and everything. It's he's had a super impressive run, and that last game, like you were saying, it's a little bit of a head scratcher there for Neeb, but he still was ahead in that game. That's not boding great for Scarlett.
You guys missed it as we were on a quick commercial break, but Robbie and I were kind of joking where Neeb was like shading in every middle line, and there were no drones anyway because he killed most of them, and the other drones were left. And Neeb was probably like, man, Scarlett is so good. It's like everywhere I shade. She keeps moving the drones before I'm there, and she's got a lot of units. It's like, well, she's like, how is Scarlett this good? She just keeps moving them before I get in range to kill him. Yeah, it's kind of funny. You know, I know you're the NA meme lord and a NA historian as well. Who was the one? Was it Jon Snow himself who tweeted out the picture of like Jon Snow being DJ Khaled and suffering from success? Was that Jon Snow himself?
Yeah. Oh my God. Jon Snow. I have to say there's some like, I think the highly known memers like Petit Drogo, class code S level memer, right? And very well known. There are some like low-key top-notch NA memers, I've got to say. Future, I think, is another solid memer. Jon Snow up there when he decides to blast one out.
Yeah, no, Drogo has got like with the memes, but if you ask me my all-time favorite, like I laughed so hard at Jon Snow becoming DJ Khaled, suffering from success, winning so many games. Oh yeah, Jon Snow is just great. Great character, great dude.
Suffering from success of winning too many games and getting matched up against what he considered the harder opponent. Yeah. Oh man. Well, Neeb is definitely going to be one of those players that if he's suffering from anything, is also going to be his success. He has been playing pretty damn well this event, and well, he's coming forward with this single adept. This time, Scarlett does not have 10 lings out on the map sniping off adepts and everything, or being annoying. She just got the 2. And all the adept is not doing a whole lot of damage over here, and he was getting some perfect scouting information, even making his way between the natural and the third.
You know what I find a little bit interesting is that it almost seems the standard to open up with a Void Ray, right? The Void Ray is going to kill the Overlord, and then the Zerg is going to play a bit of a guessing game. It feels like the majority of the good foreign protoses in the foreign scene, they open up with a Void Ray. But then the two guys that we consider the best, Showtime and Neeb, they still open up with the oracles. Now this time it's a single oracle into Void Ray, while Showtime on the other end obviously went triple oracle in all of his games. But it's a fun little thing to notice.
Yeah, I guess the idea, at least in my mind, is that if you feel like the Void Ray, I mean, it's usually going to get the Overlord kills anyways, right? It's going to be able to find the Overlord eventually that is sitting around your base. So the Oracle is the one that you're hoping to get extra damage with, and usually, you know, faster is better when it comes to an Oracle to try and get some harassment, especially as we see now. Yeah, Scarlett is still finishing up her Spore Caller over at that quote-unquote third base inside the natural, since that was the third base she took, but yeah, Neeb finds tiny bits of damage over here, even just forcing out a few drones to turn into spores for a bit.
Now we saw an Evo chamber go down, and that was obviously a little bit quicker than we normally see it in this matchup. And now we see the lair starting, but Scarlett also firing a +1 melee. Now in the past, whenever people made +1 melee, it's kind of that like, okay, you hope to overrun the third base of the Protoss. I have a hard time believing that that's the plan here with an Oracle out, a Void Ray out. I don't think that's what Scott is going to go for. So my idea is that he's more using it to get very quick +2. As obviously +2 was that Stasis Trap actually trapped 4 drones. Sorry guys, I was doing my own observing. I didn't see it. I'm sure Nyaw caught it. And now Scarlett is sending her Zerglings to the other side of the map, but it's only 13 and that's not enough to cancel the Nexus. So I guess we're just going to try to get very quick +2 and try to one-shot some probes.
Yeah, could actually, I think that's actually a really astute observation. It could very well just be a setup for much later on in the game. Like you were saying, +2 weapons is what allows those Banelings to one-shot workers. So Baneling drops are a really common form of harassment, or used to be back in the day versus Protoss.
Yes. All right, I was about to say, or it's Nidus. It's something that Scarlett has done a lot in the past, because I was looking at that queen count and I was like, yeah, 7 queens. I was like, that's a lot. 2, 3 more on the way. I was like, all right, she's actually going to go for queens, Zerglings, with +1, and a Nidus network on the other side of the map.
Kev, I just want to note, this came up once during the group stages. I was watching with Nathanius. Usually, with those queens, you really need to make sure that they actually stay alive. But the Void Rays can do very, very well when it comes to taking out like Nidus Worms or Overlords or anything that's carrying those queens. So you really have to be quite careful. And now, actually, Scarlett, she's going to be hitting with the Lings. I mean, the Nidus Worm is actually not even really coming into effect just yet, but it's going up inside the main base next to a pylon of Neeb.
Yep, and I mean, Recall is being used at the third, which obviously means that, yeah, sure, those Zerglings will go down, but the Nidus is gonna go up. But what is worth mentioning is that Scarlett has just lost a tremendous amount of Zerglings, either in the center of the map or near that Nexus. So now we have a Nidus in the main and a lot of queens. I mean, that can't be the plan. Scarlett needs to get those Zerglings out too. And even though Neeb needs to make damn sure that he can keep his Void Rays alive, this game is getting messy. It's getting an A, and I love it.
Guardian Shield finally gets popped over here. It actually helps out quite a bit versus the, frankly, low DPS output of those queens. Shield Battery also helping keep these Void Rays alive for a little bit, but one of the Void Rays does end up falling. Ling's taking out these probes, and the probes cannot be recalled or anything. Now, note that it is mostly going to be Lings popping out of that Nidus, but more queens should be popping out relatively shortly. Are going to be helping to reinforce this attack, and honestly, Scarlett is starting to break through in, I would say, the actual main base mineral line a little bit, but she hasn't fully broken through just yet, and Neeb is only going to continue to get up more and more of these power units.
Yeah, I think Neeb is actually holding incredibly well at this point. There are 2 Void Rays kind of chilling at the right side of the third, waiting for more Zerglings to show up. Neeb is like, oh, those Zerglings won't come, then I'll bring them over to the main. Neeb still has Immortals out, a couple of Stalkers. The Oracle does go down, but I think the Void Rays are still left enough in high enough numbers that this is going to be a convincing hold. What an absolutely amazing hold by Neeb. Defending in the main base, natural, and the third base at the same time. Killing the last few queens. He's now going to shut down the Nidus networks. My goodness, Neeb handled that so well.
Yeah, do not let the worker counts of the supplies deceive you guys. Neeb is very far ahead after all of that. How many queens did Scarlett have to make? How much did she have to put off any other form of tech besides literally Zerglings and queens with +1 melee and stuff? This is pretty much, that was an all-in there from Scarlett. She is going to do what she can to try and bounce back from it, but it is going to be a tough ask for her.
Yeah, the nice thing is that Scarlett is on 4 hatcheries, but you're obviously spot on. Scarlett has lost 16 queens with that attack. 16 queens in a 9-minute game. That's almost outrageous. That means that these Voidress can also fly to the other side of the map. Yeah, for a second, he was like, can I take that 5? But it's a Spore Crawler that's finishing up too. That makes things complicated. But there are no Spore Crawlers in any other base. The Dark Shrine is done. Neeb is actually going to morph his DTs into Archons. Amazing hold, man. Neeb did that so well.
I'm actually just blown away watching that. And I think, of course, you were pointing this out at the beginning, the recall allowing Neeb to just catch all of those early Zerglings. I mean, like you said, the Nidus Worm popped out and it was just, here are 80% army or 90% of the army being the queens. And then there was just no Zerglings. And the Zerglings are actually supposed to be there on the front lines, doing a lot of damage and buffering a little bit for the queens. But not having those definitely took away a lot of the firepower there for Scarlett.
Yep, the Neeb's crisis management was so good. Immediately getting batteries up in the back of this main base, but at the same time making sure that this army that was making its way into the natural stayed safe too. Dropped a couple good force fields just to zone out 2 or 3 queens. Of course, with queens and Zerglings alone, you can't break force fields. Alex is playing at a very high level in this grand final so far.
Yeah, he's now moving forward. We'll just be able to start moving on to creep very safely because, well, when you're up against pure Ling Bane with barely a few Hydras in the mix, yeah, your Archons are kind of shred everything the Zerg player has, Kev. There's nothing the Archons don't do well against here.
No, I mean, maybe if Scarlett can hold with +2 melee, +2 melee is finishing up, but a couple of Lings and Banes are gonna go down before. If Scarlett can somehow hold, then this game is actually not that bad for her. It's just there is no way. Too many high HP Protoss power units will put Neeb in the driver's seat to take home DreamHack SC2 Masters Summer. He needs one more win, but if you're playing like this, Robbie, I'm pretty sure that he's feeling real good about it. I just want to watch that again, mate. Like sometimes you watch a game of StarCraft and you just want to watch it again. And I really, really want to ask Neeb, so I hope he wins the finals, because I would never send a question to someone who loses the finals. I want to ask if that recall towards the 3rd base, if that's on purpose. Because I feel 99% would recall to the main, right? If a Nidus goes up in your main, don't you recall to the main? But he recalled towards the 3rd base to kill all those links and kept everything safe.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really think that the decision works out there, because if you think about it, the Lings are going to kill all of those probes a lot faster than Nidus Worm will take to unload all the queens and then hopefully get some of the Zerglings and stuff out and then go after all the probes in the main. And even then, like if the Nidus Worm's in the main, you think that you're probably eventually going to end up losing a bunch of probes in the main or something along those lines. So you have to rely a little bit on the economy at the 3rd base, right? That's if you can save the economy at the base where the Nidus Worm isn't, it seems like that would actually be helpful in the long term.
And I guess I'm really impressed as well, because I, like many of you guys watching at home that still hit the ladder, is an absolute F2 junkie. But the fact that he always kept those oracles and those 2 void rays at the 3rd while controlling the army in the natural, dropping some force fields, trapping a couple queens, while building batteries in the main base and making sure that the void rays didn't fly away from those batteries to keep those probes in the main base safe. Incredibly impressive hold. I mean, if you want to hate, you can be like, oh, batteries just do their thing, but I think Neeb handled that so well.
Yeah, Neeb is living up to his name as a absolute truck, just, you know, running straight over Scarlett's attempts, try and disrupt him. Now sitting up 3-1, Neeb is going to be in pretty much the most comfortable position you can ask for moving into this game number 5. Guys, we're going to be starting down here, the bottom left-hand side of the map, on top of the red Protoss player from Ting Esports. He is Neeb.
In the top right side, he now needs to win 3 games in a row to be crowned DreamHack SC2 Masters and a Summer Champion. It is our Zerg, representing the Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett.
Big task ahead of her, Kev. It starts with a game, right? You have to win 3 games in a row. You got to win 1 game first, and well, I think that Scarlett is definitely capable of it, and I think that there are definitely some maps I've seen Scarlett go for some very, very nice Nidus Worm swarm host plays that even players like Neeb have sometimes struggled to deal with.
I love that, mate. To win 3 games in a row, you need to win the one game first. That is like the racing equivalent of to finish first. First, you have to finish. You know, they always say.
Yeah, man. Look, it's like the saying of, you know, to walk a mile, you just put one foot in front of the other repeatedly until you can walk a mile. It's got to start with step 1.
Would you walk a mile for me, Ravi?
I would walk 500 miles, and then I'd walk 500 more, just to be the man who walked 500 miles and wound up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
I actually think that Scarlett, like, I hate pulling workers to kill the enemy scout because you're taking a risk. You know, if you don't get it, then you lose some economy and you also feel kind of silly. But I think if a probe is completely surrounded by drones, then I actually think you can grab those 7 drones to just aim move. Because even if the probe mineral walks immediately, you get enough hits off to kill it. So I think Neeb took a tiny risk there, especially against Scarlett, who we know is not afraid to do something wild and aggressive. And I actually think it would spread some fear into the heart of Neeb as well if he would lose his scouting probe. So I would have liked to see Scarlett try that just because Neeb, in my opinion, put his probe in a very compromising position.
Oh, 100%. Scarlett is on the list of Zerg players who would absolutely be like, haha, I've locked out your vision. Now I'm going to just all in you while you don't see anything. She is at the pretty close to the top of that list. Maybe like, you know, Bly and everything are a little bit up there, but I think Bly would do it even if your probe was still alive. So, you know, different list.
Bly does it while the probe is in the main base.
It's like, look at me. Look at me.
What are you gonna do, Protoss nerd? Make shit battery? It's like, well, yeah.
Okay, I guess that works.
He's like, oh, green battery is so good. I'm like, well, Bly. All right, Neeb is gonna drop a Stargate once more. Let's see if it's gonna be Oracle first again. The answer is yes, Oracle first it will be. For a split second, I thought he was gonna let that Adept Shade finish up, but I also understand that Neeb probably feels he doesn't want to lose an Adept early on against Scarlett, because we know that you can definitely get in a situation where you need your hands on every single Adept.
Oh, wow. Gets the Zergling. That's actually really nice. Not obviously going to be the biggest deal in the world or anything, but every Zergling you kill, if there is a few of these Zerglings trying to do things like picking off this probe, it makes it a little bit harder to get those pickoffs with Scarlett. Still adept at it, pardon my pun, as she does still delay the third base by a tiny bit.
Yeah, happy to see that Scarlett is at least able to get that probe, because that's something that I feel like did her so much good in all those other series that she was playing against the Protosses. Just always delaying that Nexus for 10-15 seconds. As a Protoss player, you bank up the resources to drop it. So when you lose that probe, it's annoying. Scarlett is also ready to deal with these 2 Adepts. Definitely looking like a better start, but the Oracle is being a bit annoying in the main base. Does find a couple drone kills. I think the Adepts got 1 and the Adepts got 2 and the Oracle's got 2. But I don't hate this start from Scarlett. I think it's better than some of the other games.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that she's had a pretty decent start.
Sorry, I was confused because I already saw a Roach Warren going up earlier, but I guess he canceled the Roach Warren and now he rebuilt the Roach Warren.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, this Roach Warren timing is definitely going to be a lot more normal if you want to just deal with any kind of follow-up aggression. And there's going to be a Twilight Council coming out over here from Neeb. So I want to say that Scarlett has actually been very good at dealing with a lot of the Adept plays. That other game was a bit of a weird one where, you know, it's Scarlett kind of going for an all-in anyways. So
yeah, but this will be Zealots,
bit of a different
I think.
Situation.
I don't think he's
so?
gonna. Yeah. I think it's too late to go Glaives here. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense after double Oracle. So I think Alex is. Oh, it's Blink actually. All right, so Blink Stalkers in +1. I don't hate that either. Okay.
Well, I'm on board with it. If Alex says he can make it work, then he'll make it work. I believe him.
Scarlett's making a lot of roaches. So he does know that Neeb is on 3 bases, sees a couple of extra gateways going down. Now we're going to march everything to the other side of the map. The answer is obviously yes, as the Queen's obviously in the center. An Oracle going down is a pretty big deal. We've seen these Oracles be quite vital in some of the Protoss defenses in the past. And it's going to take a little while before Neeb has Blink. Well, looks promising for Scarlett, even though she was supply block there, I believe, for a split second. But it's a lot of Zerg heading to Neeb's side of the map.
Yeah, Neeb has a couple of sentries over here that might be useful in buying a tiny bit of time, but there are already a couple of Ravagers that are going to be morphed in over here. Second Ravager, third Ravager, fourth Ravager, all showing up and ready to bust down this Protoss base. Neeb has a single Stalker in the wall, but has to throw down a Force Field to prevent any of the Lings or Roaches from getting into the natural, making things even more awkward. The shield batteries are so close to finishing, but the Lings going for a wraparound don't quite catch the Immortal, but do catch the sentries. And Neeb is in a world of trouble. Blink still another 15 or 20 seconds away from finishing as well.
Yep, Scarlett's going ultra heavy on the Ravagers. I actually wouldn't mind to just see a couple of random Roaches left over, because now it's basically pure Ravagers. But at least the floodgates are open with that Cybercore falling. And Neeb did not do what Australia did earlier, and that is rebuild the Cybercore immediately. And that means that now Blink is finally done, but he can't make any additional Stalkers.
This is going to be a little bit awkward, having a bunch of, a good upgrade for Blink Stalkers for only 4 Stalkers to utilize. The Immortals are really packing quite a punch over here, though, and Scarlett is just right-clicking down the Nexus. That is going to be her big victory over here and be able to reduce Neeb's base count and put him in a very awkward spot. Shield Battery Overcharge come into effect. Are the Ravagers going to be able to just take that out, though, and then take this base out as well? Oracle ends up falling. Another Immortal ends up falling. Neeb looks like he might barely start to push this back, though. Has Neeb done enough? Has he defended well enough, or is he just going to be too far behind now?
I think it's actually very close. Like, if Scarlett didn't get the Nexus, I'd actually be very worried for Scarlett. Now, killing the Nexus is a big deal, but at this point, Neeb does have +1. Neeb did rebuild the Cybercore, so he's got access to those Blink Stalkers. And that overcharged battery actually lived for quite some time and really made Neeb's life a lot easier. That was crazy. I actually think that if Neeb wasn't as sloppy and reckless with the Oracles as he was, that this would have been a more convincing hold. Like, the first Oracle died in the center of the map, and then the second one activated Pulsar Beam before the fighting even started, and it clearly was never going to win the fight against all those queens, so it had to disengage, and it didn't really come into play until the very end when Neeb was already holding, and it still died anyway. I think if Neeb would have been a bit more careful with his 2 Oracles, he would have been able to hold even more convincingly, and then I'd be willing to say that he's ahead. At this point, I think it's kind of close, actually.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually think another thing that's a little bit underrated, but the robotics facility being at the third base, usually I feel like that's the more vulnerable location, right? The third base, we've seen so many times, Zerg players are hitting that base, taking out all the stuff over there. But Scarlett went for the natural. If the Immortals were popping out in the natural, a lot of the time, I really bet that all of those Immortals would have actually ended up dying over there inside the natural expansion with all the Lings flooding on forward and the Queens focusing on that side. So being able to keep those Immortals alive at the third base and utilize those shield batteries really actually ended up helping Neeb quite a bit in the defense.
Scarlett has gone up to 80 drones, though, while Neeb was just kind of trying to rebuild and trying to retake his natural. I mean, the doors are wide open. If a couple of Zerglings would run into that natural, it'd be bad news. It seems like Neeb just wants to end this game. Maybe feels like he was actually very far ahead after all of that took place, and he feels his only chance to win it is with a couple of Blink Stalkers, a Prism, a few Immortals, and some great micro. And I'm actually starting to be... I'm not worried for Scarlett, because Scarlett does have a lot of units out, but maybe Scarlett did a few too many things at once. Like, I don't know if this base on the top left is truly necessary, but hey, at least it's going to buy some time for her.
Yeah, it's also going to kind of oddly split up Neeb's army. Now, Force Seals are going to make this a little bit more awkward. Stalkers blink forward very aggressively into the middle of the Roach and Queen pack. Now, the Immortals are doing some great damage on the high ground. A couple more Force Seals going to try and lock out Scarlett's units. And they are actually sticking around. More Stalkers being warped in. And Neeb is starting to take slightly better and better trades over here. But as the Lings come flooding on forward, will Scarlett be able to rally enough units to start breaking through the Blink Stalkers?
I would love to see Scarlett just disengage for a split second there. She's pretty far off creep, and she's fighting up not 1 but 2 ramps. Because with the reinforcements, I feel that Scarlett should have been fine. And here we do have a couple of these Roaches showing up. The Queens do fall in the end. Can Scarlett get on top of the Immortals? The answer is yes, at least for one of them. The second one is going to get saved by the Prism. I mean, Scarlett does have the army supply advantage, but 0 Queens on the map at this point. Having 4 hatcheries is nice, but 0 Queens could become problematic.
Yeah, there are 13 or 16 Roaches that are about to pop out right now. Oh, losing the other Immortal since the Warp Prism was warping in more Stalkers. that is really going to hurt Neeb's ability to continue pushing forward. And these Stalkers are starting to get pushed back, even drones being pulled off the line, which, I mean, Scarlett can definitely afford to lose a few of these drones. Neeb is very committed to making something happen here. He has been doing nothing but focusing on this attack, and he is getting pushed back.
Yep, a lot of Stalkers are so low on HP. Neeb would like to wipe in a few more Stalkers, but he knows that then the prison will just get picked off. So Scarlett does defend in the end, but my goodness. She did kind of take a beating too, because obviously the base in the top left got cancelled. All the queens went down. She is rebuilding 2 of them. 16 drones went down. I think if Neeb would have been a little bit... Oh, that prison... Almost. If Neeb would have been a bit more careful with his immortals... I actually think that Neeb could have punched through there and he could have potentially ended the game, because Scarlett was really running on her last legs there.
Yeah, every single time one of the immortals died, because there were 2 immortals, and each time they died was just when Neeb had those immortals a little bit too far forward, and the warp prism was a bit too far back, warping in the next round of Stalkers, so he couldn't do the pickups like he normally would have wanted to. So just barely missing a bit of that. And I agree. I think that those immortals were kind of the stable linchpin for that army. So now Neeb playing from a pretty tough spot where Scarlett has, during all of that attack, while she did lose a lot of queens and everything, she got up her hive, she got up a lurker den, and she's reestablishing the 5th base now while having gotten a good number of upgrades. Neeb really has to play through a lot of tough positions now.
It's a 13-minute game that feels like a 25-minute game, with first Scarlett and the super committed and big attack into Neeb, and then Neeb with his committed attack, and now we're here and it's like, all right, I'm just gonna continue doing this. I guess one thing that we can mention, which is really odd, is that Neeb is going to be able to mine off his natural a bit longer than Scarlett is, because Scarlett obviously never lost her natural. Now Scarlett is going to get lurkers, and they already have seismic spines, I believe. Oh, forward blink is a bit risky. Blinding cloud can be very nice against Stalkers too, but I think it's mostly about the abducts on the disruptors. We could fire a Nova through the zone, and the first one gets a decent connection.
Yeah, actually ends up connecting with one of the lurkers as well. Now Neeb is looking for, I was gonna say a wraparound, but no, he's looking for a complete base trade in this situation. As he's starting to move out, he does get caught by a couple of these Zerglings, but he is just ignoring the losses he's taking and going straight across the map, which, you know, if you talk about lurkers, they are positional units that need some time to set up. Now, is Neeb gonna give Scarlett time to set up? 2 disruptors go out. It's not gonna happen. Scarlett takes the game.
Well done by Scarlett. Excellent game, I think, on Juggernaut. Gets it kind of done initially with the Queen Roaches and the Ravagers, but then still had to pull off one hell of a hold on the top left side. And I definitely do think that Neeb, if he would have been able to protect those Immortals a little bit better, it's always a two-way dance. Like, on one hand, it's kudos to Scarlett for going for the Immortals when she felt she could have killed the Immortals. On the other hand, that's not really up to the Zerg. I kind of feel like it's up to the Protoss to save them. So well done by Scarlett, though. That does mean that it's now 3-2. And we're going to head into a very quick break. And after that, we'll be back with Game 6 of this Grand Finals of the DreamHack StarCraft 2 Masters NA Summer.
We are back, and this time, guys, we are going to settle the score of this series. We basically have a potential of 2 final games left over. Scarlett is starting to pull this series back a little bit, and honestly, Kev, if you look at it without the 1-0 lead Neeb starts with, it would actually be a tied-up series right now. But because Neeb is coming from that winner's bracket, he is ahead a little bit. That does give me hope for this series, though. We're going a bit further in the distance.
It's been a fun series so far, but if you want to be a pessimist, you can also be like, if Neeb would have just won light shade, it would have been all over. He was in a really good spot. But I'm happy that we are here and we are welcoming all of you guys to game 6 in the bottom left side of Oxide. We look at the main base of the man who needs one more map win to win the entire season of the DreamHack SC2 Masters summer. It is Neeb.
And up here on the top right-hand side of the map, the Blue Zerg player from Shopify Rebellion who has been firing back in some of these games, it is Scarlett.
It was such a crazy fight with the Blink Stalkers and the Queens. And it's like, it lasted so long, and at one point you're like, no, Scarlett's too rich. And then you're like, well, bro, that's pretty good. Then Scarlett gets 1 immortal, and you're like, okay, I think it's still good enough. And then you're like, oh my goodness, Scarlett's got 0 queens, and there are no more Zerglings. It's just roaches. We know what Blink Stalkers are capable of. Then getting that 2nd immortal, I think, made the difference. Quite a game.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, getting the immortals makes such a big difference. Those immortals, I mean, they do so much damage to those roaches. They can tank a lot of damage, you know, as long as you pull them out in time to start regenerating some of those shields or wait for the hardened shields come back off of cooldown. But at the end of the day, Scarlett ends up taking a solid victory over there off of not just that kind of fight and everything, right? It's also off the back of just the lead and how the greed that she took after the initial attack. You were talking about how Scarlett basically just was being hyper greedy while Neeb was just trying to reestablish his natural, and she had a superior number of units to kind of make up for some of that mac or the micro that was happening in the fight.
And it did bring us into Oxide. I'm happy to see it. It's way more fun than a 4-0 or a 4-1. Let's see what Neeb decides to do. We've seen mostly Stargate play out of Neeb. I have the feeling that in the previous game, Scarlett for a split second was thinking it was straight up Twilight because of the super early Roach Warren. But then when she either saw the Oracle or she saw no additional depths being warped in or a Stalker, I don't really know what tipped it off. She canceled the Roach Warren to then just remake it a little bit later and actually become the aggressor herself.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't hate it. The Roach Warren doesn't even really cost gas or anything, so going for it a little bit earlier, even just to be safe, is not necessarily the worst thing in the world if you end up canceling it anyways. So this game, like you said, it is going to be a yet another one of these Stargate openings over here from Neeb, but it does seem like the follow-up from Neeb after the Stargate has been a little bit different every game. So obviously the Oracles have always been, or at least one Oracle, usually 2, has been the kind of staple standard here for Neeb. But sometimes it's kind of going into the Twilight, sometimes it's going a little bit more into the Robo, and funny enough, not a lot of like super hard Stargate play like he did in the group stages versus Scarlett.
I think it is important for Scarlett to just make sure the early game is clean here. We know what Neeb is capable of. If he finds a drone here, a drone there, and then the Oracles show up and they find a few more, it is so easy for Neeb to just run away with a game and then follow it up with some devastating push or some great multi-prong that we know that he can execute it all. So it's just important for Scarlett to make sure that Neeb doesn't find that ultra comfort zone where he can kind of show off and do multiple things at once. And Scarlett, once more, is finding that initial probe kill, which I'm a very big fan of.
Yeah, nicely done there with the Ling micro, and actually keeps the majority of those Lings alive, only ends up losing 2 of them. Now, Adepts are going to be able to snipe off a creep tumor that was supposed to connect the natural to the 3rd. That's a good pick off, and then Shade on out of there very safely. Scarlett pulls all of her Lings back to the main base, ready to deal with any Shades over to that location. But ooh, that Overlord, that's a supply block with Scarlett didn't even have another Overlord on the way.
That's definitely gonna hurt. These Adepts threatening the 3rd base, but decided not to do it. Neeb is gonna drop a Twilight Council and a Forge and a Robot. Neeb's just dropping all of it. You're Scarlett and you scout this right now, you're like, okay, so all of it? All the tech? And Neeb is like, exactly. Shall I drop another Stargate just to really confuse you? But,
Kev, I mean, it's the age-old question. How do you counter every unit?
you don't. Or you answer it with roaches and queens. But I don't
That
think
is
that's
a good
gonna
counter.
Scarlett's actually going up past 60 drones already. That's a lot for this phase of the game.
Yeah, feeling pretty comfortable. Like, she is going to have a lot of space. And frankly, I mean, if your opponent is getting up all of the different buildings and everything, it is going to take a bit of time for those upgrades to come into effect. Oh, losing the Oracle and almost losing the Void Ray. Not the cleanest opening there with the Stargate units there from Neeb.
No, I mean, we mentioned early game needing to be good for Scarlett. I think this qualifies as good. Killing the Oracle, only losing 3 drones, kill the probe, great economy. Yeah, I definitely don't hate what I see out of Scarlett so far.
Continue to poach around with a couple of these Lings, just being threatening. I mean, the absolute golden ticket would be, picking off a couple of probes here and there, or even just forcing out a force field or something would be nice. But all these Lings are going to continue to just be around and be pestering, while Scarlett throws up a Spire behind all of this.
That's kind of cool. Could get into some Mutas here. We know Scarlett is very good with her Mutalisk. It's obviously dropping an infestation pit too. That one gets scouted. Does the Spire get scouted? No, I don't think so. So Neeb at this point scouts the infestation pit, does not scout the Spire. I don't think Neeb is thinking about Mutas at all, and I don't really know how I feel about Mutas against Stalkers with +1, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, Kev, I mean, we also have the infestation pit being added on, so Scarlett is also kind of spreading herself across the board with getting up a lot of these roaches, getting up the Spire, and getting up an infestation pit. And I agree that I don't really think that Neeb has a Spire on his mind, but at the same time, does Scarlett have the unit composition she's going to need to deal with this push? Because right now I'm seeing 3 roaches and a handful of Ravagers versus a pretty scary, large-looking Protoss army.
Yeah, Ravagers are really good in buying time. And obviously, just because we can see that Scarlett doesn't have that many units, it doesn't mean that Neeb can take the risk of diving deep on creep and be like, oh, I think my army's pretty good here. Like, all that Neeb saw was Zerg units, so for all he knows, Scarlett is setting up a 360 surround at this point and needs to be incredibly careful and cautious. So it's, Scarlett's even starting up +1 flyer attacks. Don't know. I don't know if it's gonna work. It's obviously nice to build Mutas against a Protoss that doesn't have a single Phoenix and isn't even thinking about it. As Neeb is getting a cannon now, maybe a little bit confused, because he's like, if this is Stalker against Roach, why are there no Roaches attacking me? Why is this so easy? What am I missing? What he's missing is the Spire.
Yeah, he actually runs toward the 3rd base, scouts a little bit of it, but does not actually run behind the mineral line there, so he doesn't see the Spire. 6 Mutas on the way. It's not going to be like the overwhelming number of Mutas that Zerg players will sometimes go for, but Scarlett is looking to maybe overwhelm at the bottom right-hand side of the map, as that is where she has her large army. Disruptors, Disruptors in that choke point. That is not a combination Zerg players want to mess with.
No. I'm actually really wondering, well, Scarlett is even taking the base at 9 o'clock. I was kind of wondering what Scarlett her plan is. Maybe a couple of Mutas just to cause some chaos and then try to get good fights with mostly the ground composition, the Roaches, the Ravagers, and a lot of Zerglings. Potentially some Banelings down the line. And 6 Mutas are going to have a hard time killing probes even in range of a shield battery.
Yeah, already softening up some of these Mutas. Keeps most of them alive, but there's already Stalkers also sitting inside of that natural. Really, really nice setup there from Neeb. And has the Disruptors ready and waiting for any of these army units that try to move up to the natural. We're starting to see Disruptor shot nailing all of the Ravagers that were in front of that natural. Force fields come down, but Neeb's army is kind of getting boxed in over here at the 3rd base.
Yep, I don't know if he activated battery overcharge already or not. I have the feeling he didn't, so he could potentially go for it. But this is a great fight for Neeb. Make no mistake, these Novas were absolutely perfect. And the Ravagers alone, they don't stand much of a chance at all against these Blink Stalkers. Good hot pickup on that final Disruptor. And this was not the attack that Scarlett was looking for. I think Scarlett, her army, would have done really well if Neeb would have spread himself thin over 4 bases. But Neeb was just shitting at 3 bases. And that just made it really hard for Scarlett to find a good engagement.
I mean, not only that, you have to remember that that entire engagement is also set up around the mutas trying to draw all these stalkers out of position. And it seemed like Neeb just had the stalkers in position at both the third and the natural. So I think Scarlett probably was thinking, well, you might even have stalkers ready in the main. You probably just have your units really spread out. If I hit it now, it's going to be the perfect time. But Neeb had the disruptors and the other sentries positioned and ready to deal with it. Now we have force fields locking out these roaches. There's just not enough Ravagers on the map anymore after having lost all of them from the previous engagement. She can't break down the force fields.
Not enough Ravagers equals to 0 Ravagers at this point. Scarlett has no way to deal with these force fields. Neeb is warping in a lot of additional stalkers. The hatchery goes down. That Baning Nest should go down, but it's not about the Baning Nest. It's about all these stalkers. And let's not forget, these disruptors still in the mix too. Maybe the Vipers can drop a blinding cloud or something. That is indeed going to be the case. But I think these stalkers are too powerful. And I think it's going to be Neeb who will be crowned as the first DreamHack SC2 Masters NA champion. And this time it's the summer edition after a 4-2 victory over